Here's why I hate gurus. The goal of every teacher should be that his students become better than the teacher. In Cantonese, the word teacher is translated as Sifu, and that can be translated as tutor or father. And as a father, I believe it's my duty to enlighten my children in Kant's sense. Emmanuel Kant describes enlightenment as the exit of self-inflicted immaturity. Immaturity is the inability to use one's own mind without the guidance of another. He describes self-inflicted immaturity when it arises not from a lack of understanding, but from a lack of resolution and courage. Those who always blindly follow the power of authority and do not act reflectively are either lack understanding or lack resolution and courage. So in my eyes, a teacher, guru or mentor who wants to make his students exact copies of himself is not a real teacher. During my course of life, I learned so much from teachers or so-called gurus, and some of them changed my life for the good and others for the worse. And honestly, I made some bad choices in life when putting money, trust and time in choosing a teacher. And today I want to share my lessons I made along the way so that you don't have to make the same mistakes I did when choosing a teacher. I mean, there are only two ways to figure something out. You can either learn it by yourself or you can learn it from somebody else. And often we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can take the lessons from somebody who has already done the thing that we want to accomplish. So we usually would gain time when learning something from a good teacher because we won't need to make all the mistakes that we would if we would figure everything out on our own. But as there are so many how-tos, get blank fast schemes or well-intended but useless advice, the source of information becomes much more important nowadays. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that you won't take your doctor's word seriously on living advice if he is smoking and massively overweight, even though the information may be accurate. On the flip side, once we trust the source, we won't have the same skeptical guard up when it comes to receiving advice, even though the information may be wrong. And this is especially true when a trusted source of yours leaves his field of expertise. So for example, when my former Kung Fu teacher tried to teach me full contact fighting, even though he hadn't any credible experience or tournament experience in fighting full contact, he was always scolding me that I wouldn't use the proper techniques from the Kung Fu forms. And I purposely take this example because those two fields seem very similar, but are in fact two totally different things. And this often happens in so-called gurus, where they take the framework of the thing they're good at and apply it to other fields without testing it for themselves first. There very well may be some overlapping characteristics, but one must take such advice with a big grain of salt. When we choose a teacher, we usually want a specific information or a skill that comes with a price. Price is money, time, and the submission to a context of how you are taught. And me personally, I'm okay to pay a price and invest time and effort when the lessons are well structured and I want to have some accountability. But the last point is a pretty important one and often overlooked because it defines how much authority you let your teacher have over you. So always ask yourself, what defines a good student and a good teacher in this student-teacher relationship? Is a good student someone who follows and don't ask questions and accepts everything the teacher says blindly? Or is a good student someone who puts in the effort but questions and challenges the teacher in everything he says? Does the teacher share his knowledge openly, selectively, or over-delivers? Is there an order in hierarchical status between students and teachers? These questions don't have a right or wrong answer, but they need to align with your belief system and values. Otherwise, they will collide. Maybe not in the first year or two, but someday they will collide. Your teacher holds a certain power over you because you want to learn something that you don't know yet. And this creates a dependency. This means that you have to do things. And that could be doing homework, exercising, putting in the effort, paying more money, giving your attention, helping out in the club, and also sometimes doing unethical stuff that you later read in the newspaper. Whatever it may be, in the end it's something on your teacher's terms. And some gurus give you the feeling that you as a student are always indebted to your teacher, even though you paid for the service. So if we would divide these things into two categories, we would need to do some work to learn something, like putting in the work, the effort, the attention, and there are things that we need to do to please the teacher. And from this differentiation, we can deduce three forms of actions in our relationship with our teacher. One, I do something for myself because it brings me personal joy. So that would be practicing, putting in the work, and being in this kind of community and environment. Two, I do something for someone else because it brings me pleasure and makes me feel good. That would be something like helping out a friend or all kinds of charitable work. And three, I do something for someone else because I feel bad when I don't do it. In his book Awareness, Anthony de Mello describes these three forms of egoism, like he calls them, as the maturation of taste. A very simple form of taste is when my actions are motivated by giving me a personal treat. Another form of maturity of taste is when I take pleasure in helping others. Not because they owe me something afterwards or I expect something from it, but because it brings me personal pleasure. And the third kind of selfishness is the worst because it doesn't make you feel good. We all, and I don't exclude myself, do many things in life because we can't say no. But a good teacher should never reinforce this kind of actions through authoritarian behavior. A student is never in debt to his teacher. A teacher who gives you this feeling is like a parent who gives his child the feeling of having to earn love. A teacher-student relationship should be based on reciprocity, and they should be able to meet as equals. One wants to teach and one wants to learn, and if this relationship is based on mutual respect, then we have a good foundation. But then there are those gurus who don't really care about their students. And they like being the master of as many students as possible just to seem successful. They're more concerned about their status than the well-being of their students. They care too much about their titles, status, symbols, emblems, artifacts, rather than helping people. Richard Feynman, one of the greatest physicists of our time and a lifelong hero of mine, had the perfect answer when he was asked by a BBC interviewer if his work was worth receiving the Nobel Prize.
Was it worth the Nobel Prize?
I don't like honors. I appreciate it for the work that I did and for people who appreciate it, and I notice that other physicists use my work. I don't need anything else. I don't see that it makes any point that someone in the Swedish Academy decides that this work is noble enough to receive a prize. I've already got the prize. The prize is the pleasure of finding the thing out, the kick in the discovery, the observation other people use it. Those are the real things. The honors are unreal.
My best teachers in life have a burning passion for their art and don't take themselves too seriously. They actually don't even need to be the best in their field. They share their journey and their lessons with a certain kind of humility, and they share their lessons willingly. It's more about their journey and what they learned along the way rather than themselves. So this is why I like books, podcasts, and videos, because
they share their knowledge willingly and openly. Otherwise, they would lose the audience attention pretty quickly. But beware of charismatic gurus. They may not have your best interest in mind. That said, we all here to learn and make our experiences. And sometimes we make bad choices, but bad decisions carry their consequences into the future. For example, at one point in our life, we may have been naive and made a choice to follow a guru. And everything made sense at that time. But as we mature and learn more about those gurus and the world, we may discover that these gurus were selling us snake oil, or we don't share the same values anymore. But even upon this realization, people have a difficult time to part ways with their gurus because they have already invested so much time. And I was also one of these people. The problem with this thinking is that we value past investments higher than possible implication of change. This is the reason why we sit through a bad movie until the end, or staying too long in a bad relationship or a job. So let's compare it with science. We would have missed so many groundbreaking discoveries if we had held on to every theory just because we invested so much time in it. Instead, look at your time investments as a way to learn and understand instead of expecting linear returns. So just like a theory that has been proven wrong, a bad decision that led to new insight is a step forward. Your effort and time have not been in vain. It led to new understanding. So don't waste your loyalty on gurus. Learn, have fun, be a good but challenging student. But when the time comes, don't hesitate to move on. Life is too short. You shouldn't sacrifice your time for a guru's dream.